Welcome to Devotional Drops, where we explore the richness of Scripture and how it speaks to our lives today. In this episode, we're reflecting on the studies that show that the average person spends 80% of their time thinking about the future or past instead of living in the present moment. And that got me thinking about this ancient wisdom about making our days count.
That's such a striking statistic, especially when you consider how it relates to this concept of numbering our days from Psalm 90. What do you think drives that disconnect?
Well, you know what's fascinating about this? Moses uses this incredibly vivid imagery about returning to dust, not to depress us, but to wake us up to the preciousness of each moment. It's like he understood human psychology thousands of years before modern science caught up.
Hmm, that's really interesting how it connects to mindfulness practices we're only now starting to appreciate.
And here's what really blows my mind. Research shows that people who practice present moment awareness report 60% higher life satisfaction. It's exactly what this ancient text was pointing to when it talks about gaining a heart of wisdom.
That reminds me of the story about the rich fool in the text, always planning for tomorrow but missing today entirely.
Oh man, that's exactly right. And you know what makes this even more relevant? Studies from Harvard Business School show that 83% of people feel they're too busy to be present with their loved ones, yet report regret about this at the end of their lives.
So, how do we actually break this cycle? The text mentions some practical steps.
Well, let's break this down into three key practices from both the ancient wisdom and modern research. First, there's this concept of intentional morning routines. Studies show the first 20 minutes of your day set the tone for the next 24 hours.
That's fascinating, especially considering how the text talks about the Israelites gathering manna each morning, creating this daily rhythm of trust and presence.
Right, and here's the second practice gratitude. Research from UC Berkeley shows that people who practice daily gratitude experience a 23% reduction in stress hormones. It's exactly what the text means by applying our hearts to wisdom.
You know what's really powerful about that? It's not just about feeling good, it actually changes our brain chemistry.
Exactly. And the third practice might surprise people. It's about embracing limitations. The text talks about this through the lens of humility, but modern psychology confirms that accepting our finite nature actually leads to more fulfilling lives.
That's such a counterintuitive finding. How does that work exactly?
Well, think about it this way. When we accept that we can't do everything, we make better choices about what really matters. Studies show that people who acknowledge their limitations report 40% higher rates of life satisfaction and meaningful relationships.
Hmm? So it's really about quality over quantity.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The text talks about storing up treasures in heaven, right? Modern research on legacy and meaning shows that people who invest in relationships and meaningful work report 3 times more life satisfaction than those focused solely on achievement.
That's incredible how these ancient principles align with current research.
You know what else stands out? The text's emphasis on daily trust rather than long term control. Studies show that excessive future planning actually increases anxiety by 47% while reducing present moment satisfaction.
So, what's the key takeaway for our listeners who want to start applying this wisdom?
Well, research suggests starting with just 2 minutes of present moment awareness each day. It's like building a muscle. You start small, but the impacts compound over time. The text puts it beautifully when it talks about wisdom being more valuable than all the world's wealth.
That's such practical wisdom for our rushed modern world.
And remember, this isn't just about personal well being. Studies show that people who practice presence and intentional living have stronger relationships, better work performance, and leave lasting positive impacts on their communities. It's exactly what this ancient wisdom was pointing toward all along.
This has been such an eye opening discussion about making our moments count.
Indeed. And as we wrap up, here's something to think about. Every moment we choose to be present is a moment we truly live. That's the heart of numbering our days. Not counting time, but making time count.